Dear audience and dear professors, can we start for this third session? The topic of the third session is green economy and legislation. We will listen 4 presentation here, and our moderator is Association Professor Dr. Sumeyra Duman. She is from Dokuz Eylül Business Administration Department. And our discussant is Dr. Okan Yardımcı. He is an energy expert from the EPDK. And I want to stop here, and screen is yours. Here, Sumeyra Hocam.
Okay, welcome all to the third session, Green Economy and Legislation. I would like to thank Okan Hoca for giving me this opportunity as being a moderator in this session. I am really excited because these are not my research areas, but I am very much interested in these topics. So I am very much enthusiastic about your presentations, also yours, Salihe, as one of a member of the organizing committee. Maybe Okan Hoca, do you want to add anything? We can quickly start listening to the presentations after you.
Thanks for the introduction, Sumeyra Hocam. I'm also honored to be with you. It's my third time in the 4th conference. Unfortunately, online. I hope the next time will be face-to-face. I'm very glad to be with you. Yeah, we can start, Sumeyra Hocam.
Okay, then we have firstly Taquioullah Malainine from Kadir University. Does carbon trading markets work? So Taquioullah, you have 15 minutes. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Duman. I will start right now sharing the screen. Okay, so hello everyone. My topic is do carbon trading markets work? But before talking about it, I want to talk about the carbon trading markets origin, kind of, how it started, what is actually being traded, and the difference between it and a different carbon pricing mechanism, which is carbon tax. Briefly discuss the difference between them and give examples of the functioning carbon trading markets around the world. So as an introduction, the carbon trading markets, which has also emission trading markets, they were first implemented in 2005 in Europe when it created the world's first international emissions trading system, which was and is still the cap and trade system. With the sole goal of reducing emissions, it got off to a really slow start when it started. I will discuss later on its different phases, how it went on in the European system. But for now, this is just an introduction. So today's markets are building up more and more, and they're building up more momentum, which is why we're discussing it, because they've actually improved enough for us to, for it to gain enough traction and attraction from all of us. So the main tools of the, so the main tools of the carbon markets are regulating emissions and setting a carbon price. How does that translate actively in the carbon trading scheme? So the carbon trade system, which is used in carbon trading markets, is based on emissions reduction targets set by governments and governing entities. And to regulate those emissions, those governments allocate to each industry, power plants, companies, a certain amount of carbon allowances. Those carbon allowances are actually what is being traded. Each one is equivalent to 1 million ton of CO2 or equivalent gases, greenhouse gases. So each one is allocated a specific number of carbon allowances, which they can't go over. And in the case where they do get over it and they extra pollute, they can buy other carbon allowances from different industries and firms, which is the economic incentives, kind of, where it allows the companies to work on their emissions, and the more they reduce them, the more they can benefit from that, where they will reduce their emissions and sell the surplus of carbon allowances. So these carbon allowances are registered by a central authority, the Carbon Bank, and each year they are measured to make sure that everyone is compliant to them. And that way, what I just explained a little earlier, where excess polluters are required to buy additional allowances because the other options would be getting heavy fines. So that gives that financial incentive for industries to work between them. And cleaner operators, they can sell their surplus of allowances. So the biggest the biggest emission trading system is the European one and is also the first one. Currently, there are discussions that when the Chinese ETS will be completed, it will be the biggest one since China is the heaviest polluters. And while they make it work, it will surpass the EU one. But for now, it's still the European one. So as I said, it was launched in 2005. And in its first phase, when it was just launched, the price of a carbon allowance was around 30 euros. The next year, it dropped to $7 because of an oversupply of allowances. So it was still a kind of trial phase. During that phase, it didn't work out so well because the market was oversupplied with allowances. So the price decreased a lot and it lost its value a little bit. And in 2008, in the second phase, when they basically suppressed all the previous allowances that people had stored and set a new price, but with the economic crisis, the prices re-dropped again and it stayed between 10 and 7 euros until 2008, beginning 2008, 2019. That's when it changed really with the corrective policy. The prices tripled by 2008. And that actually resulted in a 9% drop in emissions, which is a result of companies and industries switching from coal to gas in order to save up in the emissions. And that gives the right incentive. So what the analysts and everyone in the European Commissions noticed that with the increased prices, the results are a lot better and a lot more effective. So it will continue like this, and during each phase, the allowances will be given less and less to companies, and the prices will increase. That way, they can reshape or like control a lot more of the emissions and reduce them. As I just said, the price was the key factor that they noticed because it increased awareness and it made people realize that what is the actual price of carbon and of pollutant. So that awareness caused by the price helped them reach their goal. The price continued increasing until the COVID period, where it dropped because of a lack of activities and no one was moving and everything. And after COVID, but like July 2020, the prices went back to pre-COVID levels. And right now they are a little more than that. They are increasing more and more. So the advantages of the ETS is you set a price on carbon in those allowances, and you also kind of target the emissions at the source. So depending on the emissions, the carbon price is determined. And the participating companies can choose how, when, and where to reduce emissions. As I said, they can switch from coal to gas, which was seen a lot, especially after the increase of the carbon price, or use different methods in general to reduce the emissions. The overall cap in the system is also gradually reduced over the years, which allows the long-term progress accompanied with short-term progress as well to be effective. Some of the disadvantages of the ETS it can encourage some companies to cheat in the sense where, for example, in a country where the ETS is actually implemented, they can move to a different country where it's not and use it as they wish to cheat the system a little bit. So it depends also on how the companies deal with it. But generally speaking, from the models that I've seen working, not many companies do that, and it's actually a lot effective. So yeah, the caps on the system must be firm for it to work. Thus, the reducing the cap each year gradually to provide a better result. It also provides an unpredictable system of cost because it all depends on either the auctions or the price that is set and the surplus of allowances. So, and the last disadvantage is it does not encourage reductions beyond target levels. So basically each company is allowed a certain level of emissions, and you just need to comply by that, either by reducing it and setting your surplus, or by using different methods. But in generally speaking, it does not encourage to go beyond that target that was set for you. The different carbon pricing that I mentioned a little before was the carbon tax, which is a fee that the government or governing entity imposes on any company that burns fossil fuels. And the purpose of it is to reflect the true cost of burning carbon. In this case, rather than determine the emissions are determined by the market, and the carbon price is determined by the governing entity. It's kind of an opposite side of the same coin with the emission trading system, the cap and trade. Here, a small comparison between the two of them, in which in the carbon tax, the emissions, as I just mentioned, are unknown, differently to the cap and trade system. But the cost of 1 ton of CO2 is prefixed in the carbon tax rather than unknown, just like in the cap and trade system. Because in the cap and trade system, it depends on a lot of variables, such as the availability of carbon allowances, the permits, and different parameters that plays in there. But generally speaking, they're both effective, except for the carbon tax, I'd say it doesn't give that much incentive to reduce emissions rather than in the cap and trade, because it's set in the beginning. And for the carbon tax to be very effective, the price needs to be very high in order for it to work. But generally, it's not that high when it's implemented. And there are a lot more pro cap and trade scheme people than carbon tax or governing entities other than people. Here is a map that shows different countries that have implemented either the carbon tax or the cap and trade system. For the cap and trade system, New Zealand, China, when it's going to be complete, European Union, Mexico, Canada, and North America in general, they have all implemented a system. But for the other countries, it's not yet implemented. For example, for Turkey, it's listed in the World Bank website that it's under consideration, but it's not scheduled for operation yet. So the countries in yellow in here, just like Turkey, Brazil, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, they all planning for an eventual ETS, but it's not yet there. And the carbon tax is implemented in a lot of countries where the ETS is implemented, like they are using them complementary. But at the same time, a lot of countries that are using carbon tax are not part of the ETS, and they are still considering it. So generally speaking, I would say about the carbon trading markets that it's a very effective tool to regulate emissions, to gradually reach the target wanted. And it gives that initiative where it's market-based and people actually trade, companies trade between them, and it helps people get more involved other than in the carbon tax. So I would say from my own personal conclusion that carbon trading markets are a lot better than a carbon tax, though they can both be implemented together, but the ETS is a lot better. So that was it for my presentation about the carbon tax and about the emission trading system, the cap and trade and the carbon tax. And if there are any questions about it, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Taquioullah. I have some comments, but firstly, maybe Okan Hoca, do you have any comments? Let's hear from you first.
Please, you can start, then I can.
Okay, because we will have the questions at the end, Taquioullah. Okay, I'll just give some comments, provide some comments on your presentation. So when you were presenting, I thought about the consumer perspective of this whole topic. You talked about the tax, and you said that as the cost and the price increased, awareness in businesses increased because of the cost of production, increasing cost of production. So, and then this results as the increase in the price of the final goods, right? That because then the business will reflect that cost to the price of the final good, which then the consumer will have to pay more for that product. Maybe this is some kind of dilemma. That's why actually companies now started to add carbon footprint on their product packages to compensate that price increases. But as you said, maybe this carbon trading market would be better fit rather than tax, so that the price of the final good will not be affected, right? Do you think I'm saying something right? It's just a marketer perspective, Taquioullah. Take it as a marketer perspective.
No, yes, I understand what you said, and yes, you made very valid points in the case where like that increase in the prices kind of raised the awareness for the companies and firms, in which the prices that they were used to pay each year for the carbon, they were kind of negligible, but they almost tripled. So when they tripled, it raised that awareness in that sense where they had to make some changes, because if you keep on going the same way, they wouldn't be able to handle it. So that's where the incentive, the financial incentive comes in, because they can't keep on going like that. They will just keep on losing. So by switching and going more green and reducing emissions, which is the ultimate goal in this scheme, they are both saving up money and at the same time helping out the environment. So that's why I prefer it over the carbon tax, because it also keeps everyone involved, and that helps in raising awareness.
So it creates a transformation rather than just paying the tax and keeping on the business as usual. But in the other version, the transformation, sustainable transformation occurs within the company. Yes. Thank you. Okan Hocam?
Taki, thank you very much for this nice presentation. I learned a lot. I believe there will be lots of questions or comments at the end, at the discussion session, because I can see some experts. Actually, I cannot say expert, a master of experts. Mustafa Hoca also here. I believe he will also add something at the end. As far as I understand from your presentation, you are in favor of carbon trading. And also you said both of them can be applied, but you are in favor of carbon trading. When I consider carbon trading or in general emission issue, a pricing of emission, I can say trading or tax, I can say it is external. I mean, it is not, it's a kind of intervention to the market per se. I mean, in general. On the other side, we do not want a tax regime, and we expect from the market players to determine the best price for the carbon. Is there any contradiction for that? Because, as I said at the beginning, it is a government intervention to the market, a kind of external factor to the market, and then we expect a kind of way to be determined by the market for the prices. And my second question: do you think that there is a one size fits all, or it depends on the country? I mean the alternative. And are you planning to focus on Turkey, or on when you suggest something on Turkey, or are you planning to deal with general?
Well, honestly, I talked about it more in general, and during my research, I was looking through the best model, the oldest model that's been working, which is the European one, and that's from there I went on to see how are the other markets evolving compared to the original one that's going well so far. And that's basically my main focus, is the European one, the working one, so that I can see how the others can also emulate a little bit how it's working and get the same results. So that would be the one that I'm focused on. And for the intervention of governments and the external factor, the thing is that all signatories of the Paris Agreement, which is like 195 countries, and US came back to it as well, they're all imposed on, like they all put targets and they have to comply with the targets that have been imposed by them after signing the Paris Agreement. So because of that, that kind of motivates the whole country, and that's the external approach, because once you're part of that, you have to behave the way and make changes. So that's what I think, even though it's an external factor, but at the same time, it's a kind of good, acceptable external factor. And from there, the whole thing of getting everyone involved and making it as a market price where people would actually get interested in it in a more and better way than a carbon tax imposed each year. And that way you can't really choose the amount of emissions that you emit. But with the carbon trading markets, at least you're sure how much emissions are going to be emitted. So you will reach those targets of emissions. And at the same time, there is that financial incentives for firms, companies, industries to actually achieve those by playing with the carbon allowances, either buying surplus from others or selling that surplus of their own. So that would be my answer. You're welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you. So let's move to the second presentation, a new tool in the fight against climate change, green bonds. Ayşegül Uçkun Özkan from Karatay University.
Yes.
Hi, Ayşegül.
Hi, I am sharing my presentation.
Okay. You may start whenever you are ready, Ayşegül.
Hello, everyone. I am Ayşegül Uçkun Özkan. I am research assistant at Karatay University in Konya, and I am PhD student at Hacettepe University in the economics. And I am in the dissertation stage. And my PhD thesis is basically focused on green bonds. The first two hypotheses are related to the effects of oil price shocks on green bond issues, green bond returns. This is my macro level. And the third hypothesis is related to the effects of green bond issues on firms' value. This is my micro level. But today I will just want to talk about green bonds. I just want to introduce green bonds, which is a new tool in the fight against climate change. Basically, I will talk about 4 topics. Firstly, I will speak about concept of green bonds, then benefits and challenges of green bonds will be revealed. And after that, I will speak about state of the market. And finally, Turkey's position in terms of green bonds will be evaluated. As all we know that climate change poses the greatest threat to the humanity. The average temperature of the Earth increased almost by 1 centigrade degree from 1880 to 2012. And it has been revealed that if the current increase rate of greenhouse gas emissions continues, the temperature increase may reach 4 centigrade degree in 2060 and 6 centigrade degree in 2100. Therefore, in order to prevent this, the target of limiting the temperature increase to 2 centigrade degree has been determined with the Paris Agreement. Parties also agreed to make finance flows consistent with a pathway towards low greenhouse gas emissions and climate resilient development. Therefore, if we look at how the green bond is needed, everyone expects that environmental shocks will become more extreme and more frequent, and no single government or institution can solve this problem alone. Climate risk is now a financial risk for the world. Therefore, investors were looking for products in all asset classes that somehow address the challenges of climate change. Hence, there was a need for an interaction between environmental officers and financial officers, and financing low carbon energy and environmental transitions will require the innovation of a new financial product. Thus, green bonds, one of the tools of green finance, has emerged in 2007. Green bonds are being implemented to finance emission reductions, sustainable development, and other cleaner production investments that had achieved the 2 centigrade degree temperature of the Paris Agreement. When you look at the definition of green bonds, in the green bond principles prepared by the International Capital Market Association, firstly prepared in 2014, then updated especially in 2018. Green bonds are defined as any type of bond instrument where the proceeds or an equivalent amount will be exclusively applied to finance or refinance, and green bonds should be eligible for green projects, and these green projects are aligned with the 4 core components of the green bond principles. By the way, I should say that green bond principles are voluntary guidelines, not binding for the issuers. The 4 components are use of proceeds, process for project evaluation and selection, management of proceeds, and ongoing reporting. Use of proceeds are the cornerstone of the green bonds, because utilization of the proceeds should be for eligible green projects. Sorry. Oh, I couldn't see my slide. Green bonds have similar features to conventional fixed income corporate bonds. Only difference is that green bonds are just only used for environmentally friendly projects, such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, green buildings. And there is not a globally agreed methodology for establishing which projects are green. So if we want to look at how we know which projects will be considered as green, issuers can look at taxonomy that identifies the assets and projects. Climate bond taxonomy prepared by Climate Bond Initiative. Climate Bond Initiative is an international organization working to mobilize the largest capital market for climate change solution. Issuers can look at taxonomy and they can learn which projects are eligible, are considered as green. Green bonds can be printed by various types of issuers, such as governments, government-backed entities, municipalities, financial institutions such as banks or non-financial corporate firms. And there are basically 5 steps to show how to issue a green bond. The first one is to develop a green bond framework. Issuers should design green bond criteria and project selection process. However, there is no universally accepted standard for green bonds. Therefore, issuers can look at a variety of guidelines and standards, such as international, like climate bond taxonomy, green bond principles, green loan principles, or issuers can look at regional guidelines, such as ASEAN green bond standards, or issuers can look at country-specific standards, such as Ministry of Environment, Japan Green Bond Guidelines and Taxonomy, or Chinese guidelines. And the second one is to arrange an external review. This process include assurance report, getting credit rating, tracking of proceeds or management of proceeds. This step provides some costs for the issuers. The third one is to check for local subsidies and support mechanisms. This step contains review funding objectives and options. The fourth one is to issue the green bond. And the final step is the ongoing reporting to confirm that the funds are allocated to green projects. This process provides transparency, and transparency is important for investors in order for them to understand the climate risk exposure to their investments. When we look at the growth in green bond market, in 2007, green bond market has started, and the first green bond was issued by the European Investment Bank in 2007. After European Investment Bank, the World Bank was issued its first green bond in 2008. In 2013, corporates and banks entered to the market, and market started to grow. And although the beginning 2007 is the beginning of the green bond market. 2018 is considered as green bond boom. And in 2014, the first green bond principles was prepared, and in 2018 updated. In 2016, China's issues entered to the market, and the green bond issues continued to grow rapidly. In the green bond market increased from $8 million in 2007 to $1,378 trillion as of September 2021. However, this represents only a small share of the total bond market, because the size of worldwide bond market is $119 trillion. So it is not enough for the world. When you look at the countries in terms of amount issued and number of issues, the country ranking differs in terms of amount issued and number of issues. According to ranking countries in terms of amount issued, the top 5 countries are USA, China, Japan, Sweden, and France. The top 5 countries in terms of number of issues are USA, China, France, Germany, and Netherlands. When we look at the green bond proceeds, most of the green bond issues are used for energy, buildings, and transport. For example, in 2019, Apple issued green bond to support Apple's efforts to reduce its carbon footprint, use greener materials in its products. In 2020, Toyota issued green bond to help fund vehicles that meet specific clean air criteria, including fuel efficiency. And in many countries, waste and water management services are provided by public sector entities such as municipalities and government-backed entities. When we look at the benefits of green bonds, current studies show that issuing green bonds increases the company's environmental social governance score, contributes to the environmental improvement, increases the value of the company as green bond issues causes a positive market reaction, increases the ownership of the company as stock prices respond positively to the green bond issues, and enhances issues reputation because it helps in showcasing their commitment towards sustainable development and providing an additional source of green financing. However, there are some challenges and barriers on the green bond market. The first one is the lack of awareness of green bond benefits. The second one is the lack of universally accepted standardization. As I said before, all standards and guidelines are voluntary. The third one is the lack of local definition of green bonds. Definition of green may change country by country. For example, the project which China sees as a green project may not be seen as green by the European Union. The fourth one is the high cost of meeting green bond requirements. In some markets, relatively high cost of obtaining a second opinion or third-party assurance ranging from $10,000 to $100,000 is also a barrier for some small issues. Some issues have also complained about the high cost of managing disclosure requirements. Final challenge is the difficulties for international investors to access local green bond markets. When we look at Turkey, in Turkey there is no progress in green bond market. There are just promises and rhetorics that we just have to do it or we will do it, but there is no real action for green bond. For example, in the economic reforms announced on March 2021, it is stated that issuance of green bonds will be encouraged by preparing a guide in line with international standards for the financing of environmental friendly projects, and efforts will be carried out to increase the share of Turkey in international green finance. Or the Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey mentioned the financial risks stemming from climate change and environmentalist finance for the first time in its 32nd Financial Stability Report in May 2021. The Minister of Treasury and Finance stated that It is aimed to carry out borrowing transaction through bond issues in the bond market in June 2021, and a bond framework document has been prepared in this context. Or Ali Fuat Taşkesenlioğlu stated that they attach great importance to the preparation of Green Bond Guide. But as I said before, there is just promises. And in Turkey's development plans, important targets are set for the transition to a sustainable economy and environment. However, although the green bond issue has been discussed in the world since 2007, Turkey has only just begun to put the green bond issue on its agenda. Green bonds are a very new field for Turkey, therefore Turkey is far behind in the field of green bonds. But Turkey has green bond issues. The first green bond issues was prepared by the Turkish Industrial Development Bank in 2016, and Turkey has only one company, which is Western, issued green bonds. Government support is important because existing literature shows that sovereign green bonds tend to promote private green bonds. Besides, there is a need for policies that reduce the cost and risk of green bond issues, especially for first-time issues. As a conclusion, with the increase in green bond investments and therefore green projects, the right step will be taken for a sustainable economy that will solve problems such as global warming and climate change. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ayşegül Hoca, thank you for the presentation and the efficient usage of the time. It was a really interesting topic. It's the first time I heard about green bonds, and it's good to hear that in our country also there are some talks about this green bond, and I hope the adoption of this product will increase in the future. Okan Hoca, do you have anything to add?
I'm also very happy to hear a study about the green bond. As Ayşegül mentioned, it is a promising topic. That's why I'm very happy to see that you studied this one. You mentioned some challenge and another challenge that we can call as greenwashing. Have you ever heard greenwashing?
Yes.
This
is another challenge. I know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you mentioned a little bit on that, whether the investments are really green or not. This is the main challenge for that, because governments are incentivizing the green bonding by tax regimes. Unfortunately, in Turkey, we haven't seen that yet. But in most of the countries, yes, it is attractive for investors because of the tax advantage. So maybe we can make some comments about the tax regime of the bonds. How can we incentivize that in Turkey? And as I said, the main problem is the greenwashing, whether these bonds are going really to the green investments or not. Because as you showed, in total, the green bond reached more than $1 trillion. You said, I think you showed it is reached to $1.3 trillion, which, especially after 2019, yearly launched bond is around more than $250 billion, which equals roughly to the renewable investment. Not only renewable, sorry, maybe the total of clean investments. Yeah. So the question arises from there. Think about that. Green bonding, yearly issued bonding, reached to the level of clean investments. So it is really a promising area, yes, but we have to think about whether whether they are going to the green investment or not. And you mentioned about some principles. As far as I know, there is an international principle for that. International Capital Market Association set some principles for this. You can also search for that. Yeah, these are my issues that I can raise. I believe there will be lots of questions at the end. Thank you very much for
Thank you very much
your presentation.
for your comments.
Yes, Okan Hoca, maybe Ayşegül Hoca can make contribution about these conceptual definitions of this, like which investment is actually really green, or is there a greenwashing risk in this in the project? Maybe in your thesis, Ayşegül Hoca, you may also try to create a scheme like this one, or like this taxonomy, maybe, or after you finish your thesis, maybe. So I wish success in your PhD thesis too.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the third presentation. Relation between oil prices and renewable energy investments. Salihe,
Yes, I am here.
one of the organizing committee members,
yes,
from Kadir University. So Salihe, you may start whenever you're ready.
Ayşegül, please take off your screen.
Okay, I couldn't find. Okay.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen and my mouse?
Yes.
Okay. Here is my topic. It's relationship between oil prices and renewable energy investments. Also, I am studying with this topic in my thesis, and I just during the process of the writing process, and I hope I will finish as soon as possible. And it's my contents. Third part I have mentioned in this presentation. First, I want to say about oil side, then renewable, and also last time, and I will say something about their relations. Firstly, I will say something about short history about oil prices, and then I will talk about renewable energy investment and the share of the renewables on the energy mix. And here, this is my introduction, but before yesterday, my introduction is different, but I will show this map from the Barış Sanlı's tweet, and I said that I will share with my audience this map. And International Energy Agency published yesterday this quarterly gas price crisis but it's about gas prices, but I just want to show you, I think it's about oil, it's about coal, it's about also renewables, because this is the short-term summer and supply and demand shocks. What's going on the gas price crisis, but we can arrange these problems on the renewable energy also, because we can, when we look at the problems in all countries, in all worlds, we can see some problems. And I see that when I talk about renewable energy investments, all oil prices and renewable energy investments, but I say to myself, but how this renewable energy investment is suitable or not? And I think that we can firstly think about these short problems. And for that reason, I think that these problems is most important. And if we think about, if we support the renewable energy investment, we can consider, or we can support the long-term and the strong renewable energy investment, and these investments will not affect like this problem. I think that for that reason my introduction is this. And okay, why I chose the oil prices and why oil prices are important, I try to answer this question from this part. Because crude oil and petroleum products are global commodities, and the price of crude oil is most important, and the price reflects many supply and demand, importers and exporters, buyers and sellers. And also today, price crisis, we see that all tweets can I read, it's all about the price crisis. And this is a gas price crisis, but we can see that European countries especially transition from the oil. They consumed more oil rather than the gas. And here's petrochemical products. And 2 years ago, I was working in plastic company, packaging company, and the colors one, this polyethylene, and the raw materials of the polyethylene is the oil. And when we go to the store and when we look at the stuff shelves, every products and also this pencil are the phones. Everyone is plastics, and the source of this plastics is oil. And I will not say oil is bad and we can transfer more renewable energy. It's not true. It's not possible. I think that, especially in short and middle term, it's not suitable, we can say, because in the plastic sectors, packaging sectors almost use oil. And for that reason, I just want to say oil, and for that reason, oil prices is most important. And here I want to oil prices history. I use crude oil prices, but when I compare the renewable energy investments, I use the spot prices. Why I use crude? Because the time range is more than the spot prices. For that reason, you see that until 1970, the oil prices is just same way, went same way. But after the 2073 is the oil crisis, the first oil crisis, Yom Kippur War. The oil price start to increase, and the fluctuation is continue to now. And you see that the second crisis, Iranian revolution, because Iranian revolution, and here, but after that, here you see that almost $110 per barrel. And nowadays they talked, some experts say maybe 3 months later, we can see again $100 for the oil prices. And I think that we cannot back the 1970 before. And okay, when I chose the oil prices, I just want to show you that what's the relation between oil prices and GDP per capita. Because when we compare the countries, when we compare the companies, we can not companies, countries or regions. We can use mostly GDP per capita, and I want to compare two of this, and you see that their units it's same, and you see that almost their fluctuation, their situation is same as. But when we look at the here relation between oil consumption and GDP per capita, of course their unit is not same, but and when I read lots of papers, they generally compare oil consumption and renewable energy investment, oil consumption, GDP per capita, etc. And here and here, they're mostly different. And I cannot any relation, maybe it has, but I cannot find any relation between oil consumption and GDP per capita. For that reason, I chose oil prices. And let's turn the renewable side. I try to answer this part, what's the share of renewable energy in the energy mix, and what about renewable energy investments data. Here I took this data from another data source, and this is the graph from here. This is share of renewable in electricity production. This is the percentage, not dollars or something else. You see that the share of renewables in electricity production, Norway, Brazil, New Zealand, Sweden, Canada is the higher country, and Turkey is like under the Spain, maybe under the other countries. Here, like here, Turkey is here. And but when we look at the lowest countries, especially the first session Eman mentioned, United Arab Emirates, especially I want to say this, especially last year their solar capacity doubled, but when still their electricity production from renewables is mostly is not enough. when we compare the highest countries. And the lowest of the countries is lowest part, and there I will show the other numbers, and we will see that the renewables, the level of renewables is still so low. And here I want to show how is the global energy mix changing. And this data from our world in data, and you see that they compare fossil fuels and renewables and nuclear. And nuclear is important, and also I think as I am not wrong, the second session, Cüneyt Kahraman is mentioned about nuclear, and you see that from 1970 to 2090, renewables percentage only increased 5.6 to 11.4. But when we look at the fossil fuel side, their percentage just decreased 94% to 84.3. And you see that nuclear is also increased, but last 10 years, their percentage is decreased. But we can focus on the renewables, and their percentage, I think that is not enough for the whole country. When we look at the whole country, all investments plans. And here, the share of renewables in electricity production, you see that 28% and fossil fuel is non-renewables sources is 72. And can we change this percentage? Of course, we can change, but not vice versa. Maybe, I'm not sure, but when we look at the oil prices, when the oil price is down or decreased, and importer countries consume more oil, and this percentage is will not increase or not increase. Also, today's price crisis show that when the gas prices are high, they just turn to oil, not renewables. It is important, I think, that. And let's look at the renewable energy investment. Here, I get data from the Bloomberg NEF, and you see that almost some fluctuations, some decreased part, but almost renewable energy investment is increased. And this one is solar, wind, biofuels, and other. The unit is $1 billion. You see that the 2020 for $304 billion, the whole countries invest on renewable energy. And you see that 2004, they just is $33 billion. It's almost high, but when we compare the fossil or compare the oil, I think it's not enough. Here, they divided these investments from among the developed and developing countries. Here you can see after the especially focus on the 2015, after the 2015, developing countries investments higher than the developed countries. Almost every year, the developing countries, the effect of this, especially China, China's investment on renewable energy is higher than maybe all developed countries, one by one, not all. And here we can see the China's effect and also maybe India effect. But when we look at here the countries' investment in renewable capacity, you can see the top 30 countries, and you see that China especially is the one, the United States is the second, and you see that this is the 2019 data, and you see that China's percent is decreased when we compare to 2019. When we look at Turkey is here, I think 2020 to 22 ranked. Turkey is here, and I think it's good for Turkey. And these top 30 countries, maybe almost 10 years, I think it will not change, and those countries, renewable, thanks to those countries, renewable energy investment will be higher than these days. And here, this is the most important graph for me, because when I look at firstly this graph, and I think that I can compare to oil prices, and the source of my thesis topic is come from this graph, and global new investment in renewable energy by asset class. And you can see from 2004, 2019. And here you can see, also I will share the line graph, this graph, and you see that asset finance, small distributed capacity, public markets. We see PE is venture capital and private equity, government R&D and corporate R&D. You see that the asset finance is higher than all others. And you see last 2 years, there is no 2020 that data still, I cannot find. And the last 2 years, the renewable energy investment, some decrease because of the economical condition, I think. And here, the renewable energy investment plus electrified heat, electrified transport, energy storage, CCS, and hydrogen. They totally, this graph and this number generally very published. Every tweet, they mostly tweeted and shared these numbers, because the first ever the renewable energy investment reached $500 billion, and this is the first time, and this is the good news for renewable energy. But when we look at the renewable energy, it's just here is the yellow one. Okay, I'm sorry. The yellow one is the renewable energy side. Okay, when we look at the main part of my thesis and this presentation, relation between oil prices and renewable energy investment. Is there any relationship between them or not? This graph, I think, says something else. The green one is renewable energy, and the blue one is the oil prices. You see that until 2014, the oil prices is higher than the renewable energy. You see that? But 2014, something happened. I just look at the history. In 2014, oil prices declined sharply, but maybe it's not only effect, maybe it's effect on China effect. I'm not sure now, but I will try to answer to this question. What can do? What happened in here? And after this year, renewable energy investment not generally affected the oil prices. You see that oil prices and renewable energy investment go different sides. And this is important, and we can focus on this part and after the 2014, I think. And I will write, and I hope that I will use a model for this one, and I try to answer what happened in here and why oil prices doesn't affect renewable energy investment anymore. Not anymore, and like before, we can say. And I just want to mention about, last energy price crisis showed that, and we see that we read when we watch the programs, and demand for oil increased, and we see the Europe and renewables have been criticized. In England, example, their wind turbines doesn't work not enough, and governments, European Commission and like other governors only says we need transition, but how? They cannot say the strong points. They cannot say the European Green Deal or Green Deal is important, but maybe COP26 will focus on the main point. But I think they just say we need transition, and this is an important part. I think that I gave this part from the John Hoca's class, and I think it's important. Past core principles and new principles from the oil, and oil is not likely to be exhausted now. The supply characteristics of shale oil are different to conventional oil. Maybe we cannot talk about the shale oil anymore, but the shale oil is the main driver of the United States. They become to oil exporters thanks to this, and oil is likely to flow increasing from west to east. Before east to west, but now west to east, and OPEC remains a central role to oil markets. And I think new economics of oil is still important. And conclusion, I'm sorry, I hope I will not exceed my time, but 3 minutes to be aware of we can. And when I read articles, they just focus on these points. Renewable energy, they criticized renewable energy, and I want to criticize, because when we if we want to invest renewable energy, and if we want to increase its share, but we have to consider these problems. Renewable energy is uncompetitive and depends on government subsidies to compete with traditional fossil fuel generation. The other one is renewable energy projects are more vulnerable than other infrastructure projects to change the government policy. And the last one, and I think this important one, falling oil prices have hit the renewable energy markets hard. And that's all to myself, and I hope that you will enjoy my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Salihe. Don't worry, you extended on 5 minutes, but as far as I have seen, you have so much to talk about this topic. When I look at the title only, one might guess a positive relationship, of course, between these two variables, but as you said, this is just at the beginning, I think, of your thesis, so it will be interesting to see what other variables. Actually, I really liked your last graph. You said something happened here. Yes, that's really nice. So what happened there? Yeah, what happened there, Salihe? I am really curious about it. So it will be interesting to see after you finish your thesis, like what type of changes, significant changes occur between in the relationship between these two variables. Are there any external variables affecting the relationship, if there's a relationship, of course? Mm-hmm. And you show the graph again, a figure, sorry, about asset class. Maybe, okay. Salihe, you may look at whether the relationship exists across these categories, right? Maybe in certain categories you will find some significant relationship, maybe. So I think you are at the literature review part of your thesis, right? Or yes, am I wrong?
Yes, I have.
So you haven't done any analysis yet?
No, not.
Okay.
Not
okay. So maybe it will be interesting to see. Maybe after you finish your thesis, I really want to see what you have found.
Of course, I will share you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Okan Hoca.
Okan Hocam.
Sumeyra Hocam, thank you. Salihe Hanım, thank you very much for this nice presentation.
Thank you.
You choose a tough topic, I have to say, because when you are dealing with the oil prices, yes. Oil is not a regular commodity, as we all know. You mentioned several factors that affect oil prices, why oil price is very important. Maybe you can put some more importance on the geopolitical issues. Yes. As we all know, oil is not a regular commodity, as I said, and you know, after Bretton Woods system, it collapsed in 1971. We know that Americans and Saudis agreed to trade on US dollars, and oil played a crucial role for global finance and trading system up until that time. So before that, convertibility of gold and US dollars were playing a crucial role for the global finance and trading system. But after that collapse of the Bretton Woods system, oil is not a regular energy commodity. But we saw that during the pandemic times, not only the producer countries, but also some of the consumer countries, we saw that in G20 meetings, sat on the table and decided to stabilize the oil prices in order to stabilize the global finance and trading system. That's why we have to think, that's why it's a tough topic, that's why it's so dangerous. Maybe you will see another thing happening in the upcoming years that change the whole structure. That's why it's really difficult to link oil prices with something else. We started the similar study with Volkan Hoca 15 years ago. You know that we talked about that 3 weeks ago with you. But what we ended with oil and natural gas prices, unfortunately, because at that time we had some difficulties to find good data for renewable energy sources, especially renewable energy prices. I know that you started with oil price versus renewable energy price. Then then due to data problem, it's better to continue with the investment or capacity can be other alternative. But now it's better. You can find some data especially regarding the investment. But as I said, it's a tough topic since oil is not a regular commodity. Thank you very much for your presentation. I hope all best in your research.
Thank you so much, sir. Really, it's hard to find the data from the renewable energy investments before the 2000s. I just found 2004 from 2004 to now, but I found a new model and panel data analysis, and this model is not so it is not asked to you what is where is the all data from before the 2000. This years is enough for this model, and I will try to set up this model, and I think if I will ask to Volkan Ediger, and if he accepted, I will use this model, and after the 2000 data is enough for me, I think that. And I found this data.
Okay, that's good. As I said, we started with oil, gas, and renewable prices. Then we ended with oil and natural gas in 2006, I believe, 15 years ago. That's why it's very good to see that a new study is arising with Volkan Hoca, because new data we can easily find after 15 years. I hope you will achieve that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okan. Okay, we can pass the other presentation.
Okay, yes, thank you, Salihe. Our last presentation is legal necessity of hydrogen in Turkey in the light of the EU hydrogen developments. Seher, Çırak, Ateş from Hacettepe University. Seher Hoca, let's listen to the legal environment. Yes, Seher Hoca, I am very curious about what you will say, how legal environment affects this green economy. Yes, you may start whenever you are ready.
Okay, hello everyone. Okay.
Seher Hoca, we can see your presentation. Okay.
Okay. Okay, I am Seher Çırak Ateş. I am a PhD student at Hacettepe University. Today I will talk about the legal necessity of hydrogen in Turkey in the light of the EU hydrogen developments. First, I will talk about EU hydrogen developments. Then I will talk about the Turkish status and what should be done in Turkey. We can say that EU has a clear vision on the hydrogen because the world is facing the major challenge of climate change. So there's a consensus that low and zero carbon hydrogen will play an important role in Europe's energy future. So the EU hydrogen strategy will give a boost to clean hydrogen production in Europe. That's why in the EU, hydrogen is an investment priority to boost economic growth and resilience, create local jobs, and consolidate the EU's global leadership. Not only EU itself, EU member states individually are increasingly considering hydrogen development as part of their strategy to decarbonize energy supply. When we say hydrogen, there are many types of hydrogen: gray, blue, turquoise, green, and others. But I hear mention green hydrogen. When I called hydrogen, this means green hydrogen here. EU has a clear targets on hydrogen in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the EU by at least 40% below in 99 levels by 2030. In line with this, 2050, there's an intention to raise greenhouse gas emissions reduction target for 2030 to at least 50 to 55% from 99 levels. That's why hydrogen is a way of achieving these targets in line with Europe's decarbonization strategy. You can see here that hydrogen is an energy carrier in many different applicants. From shipping, aviation, cars, rail, trucks, buses industry, heating industry, power generation, or steel industry, chemical industry, and refineries. For example, LNG bunkering business is very popular nowadays, but LNG is just a transitional fuel for ships. In future, hydrogen will be used for ships' fuel. So we can see hydrogen's importance here as well, and from different aspects too. As I said before, EU has a clear target to implement hydrogen strategy in national level. EU offers research and development programs to its member states, and the member states should have their own vision documents, their own roadmap, and their own strategy too. Also, EU promotes public-private partnership in order to create information platforms, to create general consensus on the vision, and coordinate future efforts. So last year, EU has revealed its hydrogen strategy, a roadmap to 2050. This strategy aims for an integrated view of the hydrogen value chain and establishes of a supporting governance system and policy framework to promote hydrogen deployment. This document identifies green hydrogen as the only shade of hydrogen compatible with a net zero emission system. You can see here that the EU's hydrogen strategy towards a European hydrogen ecosystem step by step. From 2020 to 2024, 6 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen electrolyzers in the EU and the production of up to 1 million tons of renewable hydrogen has been planned. And between 2025 and 2030, at least 40 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen electrolyzers and the production of up to 10 million tons of renewable hydrogen has been planned. And between 2030 and 2050 and 2050 onwards, renewable hydrogen will be deployed at a large scale across all hard to decarbonize sectors. By EU hydrogen strategy, European Clean Hydrogen Alliance has been established. And this document builds up a clear pipeline of a viable investment projects. And this document brings amendment to EU emission trading systems, such as guarantees of origin system. And direct and transparent market-based support schemes for renewable hydrogen have been offered by this document as well. Trans-European networks for energy and the review of the internal gas market legislation for competitive decarbonized gas markets have been revised. And finally, established the proposed clean hydrogen partnership focusing on renewable hydrogen production, storage, transport, distribution, and key components for priority end users of clean hydrogen at a competitive price. And this year, on 14 July, the European Commission adopted the Fit for 55 package. This is not just related to hydrogen, but there is some mention to hydrogen topic. This Fit for 55 package, 13 cross-cutting legislative proposals include 8 revisions of existing legislation and 5 brand new proposals. The renewable and low-carbon hydrogen sector was well represented across the different initiatives announced under Fit for 55. The amended Renewable Energy Directive set sub-targets for renewable hydrogen and also EU-wide certification for renewable fuels to also include renewable hydrogen. This is intended to allow renewable hydrogen producers to obtain a premium for their product. A comparable scheme is expected for low-carbon hydrogen under the gas decarbonization package later this year. Probably this December, this gas carbonization package will come. And secondly, the revision of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive, hydrogen refueling station for every 150 kilometers of trans-European network for transport core network, as well as refueling stations in every urban node. And the amendment of the regulation setting CO2 emission standards for cars and vans mentions hydrogen as a decarbonization option for heavy-duty vehicles in pursuit of emission reductions. The new FuelEU Maritime proposal covers all renewable and low-carbon fuels, including decarbonized hydrogen and derived fuels. And finally, revised EU emission trading system electrolyzers will now be eligible for free credits, and the revised Energy Taxation Directive will set preferential tax rates for the use of renewable and low-carbon hydrogen. And how about the studies in Turkey, hydrogen? When I search hydrogen in legislation, there is no separate legislation on hydrogen topic. When I search, only I found a few regulation and communication. Regulation on increasing energy resources and efficiency in energy use regulation, I can see hydrogen, just a few words, and regulation on type approval of hydrogen-powered motor vehicles, and communique on implementation measures of regulation on type approval of hydrogen-powered motor vehicles. Also, when I search 4646 numbered natural gas law defines gas, but when I look at gas definition, can hydrogen be regarded as gas? My answer is no. That's why there's a necessity that a separate hydrogen legislation should come into effect. And also in Turkey, yesterday, Paris Agreement has been ratified by the Turkish Parliament. By ratification of this Paris Climate Agreement, carbon taxes and other environmental issues Turkey will face these topics, and hydrogen will much more important in this context. And also the Executive Director of International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, believes that to achieve Paris Climate Agreement goals, global low carbon hydrogen production should reach 40 million tons by 2030 from 450 tons today. In Turkey, I can give this number. Turkey's consumption, yearly hydrogen consumption is 500,000 per year. Green hydrogen network, the challenge is now to provide the right incentives and to choose the best regulatory framework to drive this change in a cost-effective manner that will benefit of all Turkish citizens. And the development of hydrogen technology investment, I think regulatory needs is the foremost one. When I attend this kind of webinars, always when I listen, they said all the speakers, this is chicken and egg issue. First, regulation should come, then investment will come, but sometimes it can change. Investment will come firstly, after that legislation will come later. So this is a bit chicken and egg issue. And also I can say that hydrogen injection rates vary in European legislation, such as UK, Netherlands. Maybe Turkey will add this kind of hydrogen blending, hydrogen injection rates in its legislation too. And what should be done in Turkey in terms of Turkish law perspective? First of all, I think a separate hydrogen legislation should be prepared in terms of its importance, and the primary and the secondary legislation related to hydrogen energy should be clearly established with future foresight in order to achieve a competitive market. And also technical safety standards are very important, which should be compatible with international standards regarding the production, distribution, transmission, storage, and end-use process of hydrogen. In Turkey is of great importance in terms of developing an effective hydrogen infrastructure. And national incentive mechanism regulations should also be prepared, since the implementation of renewable hydrogen strategy is very costly. And finally, opportunities for national and international cooperation in this field should be pursued and evaluated. In brief, I would like to say that hydrogen offers opportunities within the scope of domestic and national energy strategy. Hydrogen promises environmental sustainability. Collaboration is very necessary to overcome this kind of technical, financial, and regulatory challenges. And finally, the EU has a clear target on hydrogen strategy. Turkey should have a clear target on hydrogen strategy legislation too. And this is end of my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Yes, thank you, Seher Hocam. Thank you for this very neat and clear presentation, because frankly, I was a little bit scared to see the title. When I saw the title, that you would talk so much about low specific concepts, but it was a very clear and easy to understand. So thank you for that, because I don't know so much about, or I don't know almost anything about that topic, but I understood thanks to your presentation. And what I thought when you were presenting this need in legislation in hydrogen in Turkey, that it is very promising to see scholars like you working on topics like this and working on what we need in terms of legislation, in terms of sustainability. So thank you for your presentation. I don't have any questions for you, but maybe Okan Hoca, do you have anything to add?
I totally agree with Sumeyra Hoca. Yeah, this is a promising topic. I'm also happy to hear, especially the regulatory aspects of the hydrogen sector. So we have limited time. That's why I would like to give some time to the audience. As I said, there are some prominent experts I can see. So maybe they have some comments, contributions. So let's give floor to audience. Sumeyra Hocam, what do you think?
Yes, Okan Hocam. Yes, definitely. So do we have any comments, feedbacks, questions to the speakers from our audience? Any contributions maybe? Because we have some students writing their PhD and master's thesis, so I think they would benefit so much from your contributions.
Seher Hanım, I believe you are in contact with İskender Hoca for your study. I think he will be on next session as well. And I think you are also in contact with him.
Yes, I have contact with him. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Yeah, maybe I'd like to ask Seher Hanım for, well, first of all, I really enjoyed listening her. I think you're in the law department, right?
Thank you very much for your comment. I'm a PhD student at Hacettepe University. Actually, I work at BOTAŞ, Petroleum Pipeline Corporation, International Projects Department. Yes.
In which department are you?
International Hacettepe University. I'm the private law department. I'm PhD student there, but I work as an expert at BOTAŞ Petroleum Pipeline Corporation.
Okay, very good. So what I would like to hear from you that the legal infrastructure, do you think legal infrastructure is is enough to establish a market? You know, what I'm trying to say is there is no market today in Turkey.
Yes.
And if there is no market, what is the use of working on the legal infrastructure? So maybe we should wait for a while to develop the infrastructure first. I mean, some facilities, or we have to increase the usage, and we see how the things are going in the market. And then maybe we need to regulate them by using primary or secondary legislation. Am I wrong?
Actually, I think the driving force is here cost. Because if we produce hydrogen from natural gas or other sources, the cost is €1, I think, per megawatt. But if we use renewable sources to produce hydrogen, this is €4 or €6, something like that. And because of the cost, the producers and the consumers do not want to get risk. That's why the government should subsidize or give right incentives, give this kind of infrastructure legislation to give way to the investors to enter this market.
Yeah, for
That's
that we don't need a law. You know, a kind of decree would be enough, I guess, to support.
Yes, yes, or maybe this kind of authority can handle with these problems. Not just only law. I mean, I said law, legal overly. This can be by law, regulation, etc. But something should be written, should be done in Turkey to hydrogen to attract investment.
Okay.
Can I have a comment, Volkan Hocam, to your question? Yeah. My law professor in Penn State University explained this like that. You know, in the US, the law system is common law, whereas in Turkey it is civil law. And in civil law system, we have to codify everything. We have to write down everything before we start to action. On the other side, in the US, it's the common law system. They don't write everything. They look at the previous cases and decide on that. And my professor said that this is better for innovation. So we start to act, start our action, and then we check the law. On the other side, when civil law is the judiciary of the country, it is a kind of barrier for the innovation. We have to write down everything, and then the regulations, the law, the other legal codes, and then we start, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Do we have any other contributions? Yes, Salihe.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, no. Do you have anything to say, Salihe?
I just say we have 10 minutes for break. I just say this one. Okay.
Okay. Yes. As I see, at 3:30 to 3:45 we have a break. Okay. So I would like to thank everyone for attending this session. Thank you, the presenters also. Thank you, Okan Hoca. Thank you, Volkan Hocam. Yes. So do you have any final words, Okan Hocam? Do you have any final words?
I would like to congratulate all the students for their great presentations. Thank to the organization committee, and of course Volkan Hocam for this nice organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you for contributing.